Hello, I'm Dr. Herman and welcome here to this video that you're either watching on a DVD that we sent to your home. It's the same video that's probably here on YouTube if you're tuning into us on YouTube, or you received this in an email from me or from another friend or loved one who sent this, shared this information with you. And what we're going to talk about today, the length of this video may be about an hour and a half, maybe about an hour and 40 or 50 minutes. There's so much information about Crohn's disease, celiac disease, and other intestinal disorders like irritable bowel syndrome and diverticulitis that you really deserve to understand. And if you're still suffering, or a loved one, a friend, a family member, a coworker is still suffering from these intestinal diseases like Crohn's, celiac, IBS, diverticulitis, it's because the doctors have not figured out why they're suffering. And even with all the laboratories, they're not figuring out what is going on for that person. And I'm going to help you understand that living with your symptoms, it must mean that there is something that's going on in your body that is, your body's trying to tell you there is something here that we need to get rid of. It's just like being in your car when you're driving and the check engine light comes on and the oil light comes on the dashboard. That doesn't mean that it's something that you just put a medicine into the gas tank to get rid of that light. It means fix what's wrong. So various symptoms, intestinal symptoms, digestive symptoms, are telling you that something is really wrong. And I know you probably, and I'm going to probably mention this again as I go along with these screenshots, this PowerPoint I have here next to me, but you probably have had some colonoscopies and endoscopies and biopsies and stool tests and blood tests, and your doctors are just telling you the same thing. Just take your anti-inflammatories and we can't find anything wrong, and it is inflamed, and but you know, you can take maybe some immunosuppressive medications and corticosteroids, and you're still living with the fear that you can't, you know, control your bowels. And that's just not a way to live. It's not a way to live. And something that's really important to understand is that what the science is pointing to now, the literature out there is pointing to now, is that the intestines have more immune cells, the intestines have more nerve tissue than any other part of your body except the brain. And they're actually saying the gut is the second brain. And there's a connection from gut to brain. Okay, and we're going to get deeper into some different parts of connections in the body, like your thyroid and your gut. So there's going to be a lot of information that we share here. So what I invite you to do is to get comfortable, shut off the phone, turn off the television, unless you're watching this on a DVD player, keep it on. But get comfortable, get a pad, get a pen, and start taking notes. And if I speak a little fast over something, you have the ability to just hit the remote and pause the video, or press pause on your keyboard on your computer and write something down. You can rewind it, you can play it, you can press pause and rewind. You can do that over and over again. I highly recommend you take some notes. I highly recommend that you watch this video again before, if you decide, before you're going to make an appointment to meet with me and consult with me. Before you do that, please watch this video more than once. Watch it with a loved one. Okay? So let's get into this. And what we're calling this is Hope for Your Crohn's, Celiac, and/or Irritable Bowels. It could be diverticulitis. It could be enteritis. There could be a number of different symptoms that go along with a Crohn's or celiac condition. And you can recover from your condition and regain your health naturally. And I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to show you how I have some patient care examples in here, how we get to the bottom of it. And I'm sure this information you probably, I say sure and probably, most likely you haven't heard this before from, if you've been to the best hospitals, the best laboratories, the best doctors, the best gastrointestinal specialists, you probably have not heard this information I'm going to share with you. And I'll tell you who I am in just a few minutes and let you make your judgment if you want to listen to the research that's here in this video, and if you think that I have some credibility to who I am and what I know. I'll show you my education in just a few minutes. And why should you keep listening to this? to my unique Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowel presentation? It's because you deserve instruction on what's going on in your body. You deserve to know now what is causing your symptom. And you deserve to have a structure, a format of what you can do to reverse your condition, and you deserve that now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, not 10 years. You deserve now. So if you keep going from doctor to doctor to doctor and getting more laboratories and more laboratories and more laboratories and more laboratories, and they're not giving you the answer, you deserve to step outside the box and go somewhere else and start to, really look in other ways to get your answers. And you deserve hope now, and you deserve hope that your body can heal itself from Crohn's and from celiac, and you can, and I've helped people do it over and over. You deserve answers now, and that's what we're here for. And I assure you of one thing, when you complete watching this highly informative video and you start to understand what's going on and you take your notes and you watch this video again, you can stop the endless hours of searching for answers on the internet. You can stop from going doctor to doctor to doctor, and you will know exactly what is taking place and what you need to do about your bowel condition. And let me tell you, I'm not a professional speaker, I am a doctor. I'm a great physician. So if I have to refer to some notes that I put for myself to keep me in order with this information I'm going to share with you, because there's so much, as you're going to see in a few minutes, there's so much information out there, it's going to keep me in track, because I could bounce around before I get to the main points for you, okay? So during this video, I'm going to share two different unique individualized Crohn's celiac patient care examples and what caused their condition, and you're going to understand and have a structure and have answers as to what may be going on with you. Now, for a one-on-one consultation, I'll make an offer to you at the end of this video, but for that one-on-one sit down, we're going to be able to look at you as an individual, and there are individual concerns, okay, with these same symptoms. Just because you have a Crohn's diagnosis and 100 other people have a Crohn's diagnosis or a celiac or a diverticulitis diagnosis, that doesn't mean that every single one of the people diagnosed with that same condition have the exact same causes of that condition. You're going to understand in a few more minutes. And you will say, I'm ready to heal myself, and you should be able to say, I can do this now. So let's begin. The most common symptoms of Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowels are diarrhea, constipation, irritable bowels, because it can alternate between diarrhea and constipation, fatigue, extreme fatigue I see with patients, bloating, I see this quite frequently with people with these digestive disorders, swelling can happen in the face, swelling can happen in the arms and legs, hands, feet, insomnia is another one. People with these intestinal disorders, at least the majority of people who come into my office, who consult with me and call me from places not only in my state where I live and practice, but around the United States and even from other countries in this world, who come here across the oceans for good quality care when they begin to understand what's really going on with their system and how I can help you and them make a difference in their health, is that insomnia is very common. People can't fall asleep. People can't stay asleep. People can take medications like Ambien or Lunesta or other depression medications and try to sleep and get rid of the pain and discomfort, but they're waking up really fatigued. They're waking up with a drug kind of a hangover from these medications. And we got to get rid of that and be able to help you sleep again. You'll understand soon. More symptoms: pain in the chest, depression, mouth and nose ulcers, protruding belly, that bloating effect, gas, anemia, tingling in the legs, joint pain, muscle pain. And you've got to know that if something is wrong in the gut, if the gut is inflamed, your whole body becomes inflamed. You have such an amazing system in your intestines and your stomach. There's so many nerve endings and there's so much immune support here, because your body is saying, what am I going to take in from what I eat, and what do I have to get rid of from what I'm consuming? Do I want to take in these proteins and these vitamins and these minerals? Do I want to get rid of the toxins that could be on my food? Do I get rid of an infection that might be in a piece of chicken or an egg or a steak? Do I want to get rid of the toxin that could be on the peanut? You'll see more about that in a few minutes. So your intestines have to be really smart. You have to have a lot of soldiers there to kind of weed through what's good, what's bad, get out what's bad, keep in what's good. Side note about depression when it comes to Crohn's or a celiac condition: 90% of your serotonin, you have brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine and And there's GABA, there's glutamate, there's a number of different chemistries in the brain, neurotransmitters they're called. Your brain makes one of these ingredients or neurotransmitters called serotonin. It doesn't work in the brain until it travels through the body, it goes into the intestines, and it comes out the other side as the active form of the serotonin. 90% of serotonin, which is the antidepressant, it even helps you sleep, it's produced in the gut. It's made here, but it doesn't work until it's turned on, until it's converted into an active brain chemical and goes back up to the brain to serve the brain. So if you have inflammation in the intestines caused by various things we'll get into in a minute, if you have inflammation down there, you cannot possibly physiologically produce enough serotonin to make the brain feel okay. So I see people who have intestinal disorders, they're taking Zoloft, they're taking Cymbalta, they're trying some different natural things like 5-HTP, tryptophan, and they can't sleep, they don't feel good, they're not keeping their senses about themselves. And we're going to be able to help you with that. Some people who suffer with Crohn's and celiac also suffer from fibromyalgia. I see that very commonly in my practice. They suffer with thyroiditis, thyroid problems, hypothyroid, hyperthyroid. What you've got to know about your thyroid, and I have a whole nother video. If you go over to, on YouTube, write this down, Hope for Your Thyroid. I've got a great 2-hour and 15-minute video. There's so much information about thyroid, and I see so many people in my practice from around the world who have thyroid conditions. And one thing that people are not aware of, and you'll see in that video too, is that 40% of the thyroid hormones are converted into active thyroid hormones in the intestines. You have on your thyroid hormone analysis a TSH, a T4, a T3. There's more than that. We're not going to go into that. You can watch the thyroid video. But in order for that T4, which is known as an inactive thyroid hormone, in order for that T4 to become active and have all the cells use it, that T4 has to go through your liver and your intestines. What if your intestines are inflamed? What if they're infected? What if they're sick? What if there's food? What if there's toxins in there? What if there's heavy metals in there? And your thyroid 4 hormone has to turn into thyroid 3, T4 to T3. It has to do that in the intestines, and your intestines are sick. It can't produce T4 to T3, so you could be living with hypothyroidism. And when there's hypothyroidism, something else happens. You can't get enough oxygen into the cells, because the thyroid's #1 job is oxygen uptake into the cell. So if a cell's depending on oxygen, and that oxygen level is going to be low, what do you think is going to happen? Your intestines can't work properly because they don't have enough oxygen. Your brain can't function properly because it doesn't have enough oxygen. You can feel fatigued. You can have a whole cascade of symptoms can develop because of that. And it's not because it's a thyroid problem, it's because it's an intestinal problem. And we're going to help you understand why as we go along in this video, what causes these thyroid problems. A few of them I just alluded to a minute ago. Other people have incontinence, they can't hold their bladder. I've got to help with that, and we can fix that. They've got missed work, missed family functions, hair loss can happen from this condition. I'm going to provide you with amazing information that you've never heard before, and this information will help you change your life. And I want to help you stop from running from doctor to doctor to doctor. And watching this video, you can embrace the most up-to-date, advanced, non-surgical, drug-free, integrative, individualized Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowel, diverticulitis recovery protocols. On this screen, it might be a little hard for you to see, but I'm going to tell you what this is. Let me start telling you about me and why you should keep listening here. I went to school first to get a chiropractic degree. This is not about chiropractic making a difference in your Crohn's disease, so don't think I'm going to tell you that getting your neck cracked or manipulated or adjusted or your back done is going to fix your intestines. That's not what I'm telling you at all. If you think that's what I'm going to say, please keep listening, because you deserve to get some answers. If you're ready to just shut it off now, don't, and keep listening. And I'm going to tell you, because I've had people say, oh, but you've told me all the other things you've done, but that's what you did and that's who you are. You know what? I do martial arts. That's one of my favorite things. I've been in martial arts for 12 years. When I first started martial arts, I was a white belt. I'm now going for a 2nd degree in a black belt. I already have my black belt. I'm not a white belt anymore. You look at my skills now compared to what it was when I first entered my karate school, my dojo. It's a lot different now. When I first came into school as a chiropractor, I thought I could heal everybody with it. I realized very quickly it wasn't working for Crohn's disease. It wasn't working for thyroid disease. It wasn't working for fibromyalgia. It wasn't working for cancer. It wasn't working for all these things that they tried to tell me with this philosophy that it would heal every part of the human body. But I want you to understand something that you probably are not aware of about chiropractic education. And that's about the basic sciences. And there's a chart that I found on the internet that shows the difference between chiropractic education and medical school education. So let's just listen for another moment here about our education on the basic sciences. Anatomy, chiropractic school had 520 class hours, medical school 508. Physiology, 420 hours in chiropractic school, 326 in medical school. Pathology, disease study, 271 hours in chiropractic, 335 hours in medical, almost neck and neck there. Chemistry, 300 hours in chiropractic, 325 in medical. Bacteriology, that's study of bacteria. I've also gotten into, after chiropractic school, my postgraduate education, virology, parasitology, and a number of different tropical diseases and so on that you really need to know how to find out what's going on in a person. So, but bacteriology, 114 hours, 130 in medical. Pretty close there. Diagnosis, neurology, x-ray, psychiatry, obstetrics, gynecology, orthopedics. The total hours in chiropractic for all these basic subjects, 2,887 hours. In medical school, 2,756 hours. There's a lot of education we had to go through to get this degree. Okay, I don't want to be a medical doctor. I don't want to keep prescribing you medication that's not making you well. I don't want to keep telling you there's another test we can run to wait for some other miracle new experimental drug to come out that's going to fix your condition and let you go home and you just come back in another few weeks and not figure it out. We got to figure it out. So I'm happy that I'm not prescribing medications that way. And I'm also happy that I'm not still doing what I did when I first came out of school, thinking that chiropractic was going to heal people. But you do deserve to understand that all these basic sciences, we had quite a bit of education there. But now let's go further with my postgraduate education. I have over 300 hours in class hours in functional neurology study. I've been in this brain-based educational world and functional neurology world for probably 4 years now. I've gone through the whole program. I have endless hours at home of studying, endless hours of working with patients, experience in my practice. And we know how to change, not only examine the human brain and see if your brain stem, for instance, might be part of your gut function or your stomach not working properly, because your vagus nerve that comes off of your brain stem goes to your stomach and your intestines, as well as some other parts. But for you to understand about gut function, what if you have a brain stem malfunction taking place? How do you fix that? Do you take a pill? Or do you have to go in there and tune it up? And there are ways to do that. There are functional brain therapies that we can actually do to tune up the brainstem. And there's more about the brain. I'll get to that later on, and actually one-on-one when we do a neurological exam, you'll know more about you. But 300 hours in functional neurology, postgraduate. 150 hours in neurochemistry and neuroimmunology. I got to study under one of the world's most recognized, published immunologist, Dr. Aristo Vojdani. The man was super nice, super intelligent, has been in the immunology field for over 40 years. He had so much information to share with us. This was incredible about brain chemistries and about the immunology, about what causes disease like rheumatoid arthritis and celiac and Crohn's and a number of them. 50 hours in class hours in functional endocrinology. When I say the word functional, we're looking at the function of things, not just run a lab, see there's an inflammation and take an anti-inflammatory. Run a hormone lab, see that they have a low progesterone, and here just take progesterone. We got to understand what's going on, what the sequence of events is in the person's body to get to the root of what really is going on with them. It's not about living on an anti-inflammatory pill for the rest of your life or an immunosuppressive pill for the rest of your life because we see something on a laboratory. You've got to get to the root of what's causing those conditions. 50 class hours in mastering the thyroid gland, 50 class hours in functional blood chemistry analysis. I took 25 class hours of human brain dissection. That was 3 days in California where we actually sliced up human brain tissue and got to name all the parts and study, and it was just brilliant. It was amazing to hold that brain and really see what it is. And I was led by a master. a master of the human brain. One of my great mentors, Dr. Ted Carrick. He's a PhD in neurology. The man is super brilliant about the human brain. Probably nobody else in the world is as smart about the human brain than that man. I'm good, but nothing like him. He's an incredible mentor. 50 class hours in human brain development and developmental disorders. I've learned about autism and Asperger's and what we can actually do to unravel those conditions for people. 25 hours in movement disorders, people with tremors, Parkinson's type conditions, and what we can do to actually figure out what's causing it and how we can actually therapy that brain and make that person function normal. And it can be done. I have ongoing support in Chinese medicine, in biophysics, in biochemistry, and epigenetics. Epigenetics, what is that? Well, you've heard of genetics. It's in the genes, so you have it because your parent had it, or your grandparent had it. It skipped a generation, they say, and all those rumors out there from people who don't have the education in genetics or epigenetics. But for 20 years, there was research going on. Actually, let's go back to where it started. There was the discovery of the DNA double helix, and they said at that time, we think that there is a way to that the gene has predetermined outcome for that cell, for that human being. We think. Everybody jumped on board and said, hey, that makes sense. Let's just jump on that bandwagon. If it's in the gene, that is definitely the person's outcome. 20 years of research in the Human Genome Project proved that's not true. People still believe that story. It's just a rumor that's went around. It's kind of like when you're in elementary school and every kid in the room gets in a circle and you whisper and somebody might keep saying the same thing or say something different. Well, let's look at the real, when it comes all the way around to the end. Maybe you remember that little game in school as a kid. But understand something. There are researchers who've been out for the past 20 plus years who now have mentioned a term or brought to our understanding about the way the human body cell function. It's called epigenetics. The gene is not pre-programmed to have a destination. Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's got a PhD in cellular biology. You can look him up online, write his name down, look him up on YouTube, you'll find him. He is great to listen to, fun to listen to, and super educational. The man is smart. And what he found under the microscope in the laboratory, he took a cell, put it under the microscope, put it on the slide, looked underneath. He was able to magnify it, so many tens of thousands of times. And he went to that cell. And there's a part of the cell, when we took biology in school, we were taught that the nucleus of the cell is the brain. He went to that nucleus in the cell and he took it out of the cell. Now, what would happen to you if I took your brain out? Really, if I took your brain out, you wouldn't function, right? Well, he took the nucleus that we were taught in biology, was the brain, took it out of the cell. The cell still functioned exactly the same. It still did everything it needed to do. Then he went to the genes, he went to the DNA in the cell, and he took that out as well. And guess what happened? The cell still behaved and functioned exactly the same. It didn't all of a sudden explode. It didn't stop working. It didn't turn into cancer. It didn't turn into a celiac disease type cell. It still behaved the same. It still had to eat. It still had to drink. It still had to swallow. It still had to poop. It still had to gravitate towards its friends. It had to stay away from toxins, stay away from a fire, so to speak. They found the cell still functioned the same without its DNA, without its genetic code. Let me bring up another superstar that you're probably aware of. Angelina Jolie. You know the story about her recently in the past year or two? This is January 28th, 2014. I'm making this video. So in the past year or two, I don't remember exactly, Angelina Jolie was in all the magazines and news and newspapers that she had a double mastectomy because she found out that she had a breast cancer gene. Everybody applauded her. That's wonderful. I hear women come in and say, yes, she's wonderful for doing that, and she's educating people, and they're educating people, and I wonder something. What if she found out that she had a brain cancer gene? People get brain cancer. Do they have brain cancer genes? And what if she found out she had a brain cancer gene? What would she do then? Take out a brain? I don't think so. So let's look at what really goes on. What they were able to prove in epigenetics is that whatever happens on the membrane of the cell, on the cell structure, the outside of that membrane of that cell is what will change the cell's behavior. You can understand why that really matters to your Crohn's or celiac condition in a little while. Let me tell you something else I forgot to mention. I'm also getting a master's in integrative cancer therapy. I've been deep in the study of cancer for 2 years. Lost a loved one, Not in my immediate family, thank God, but it was still a very close, dear person, and that really got me on a mission, because I thought I knew a lot when I got out of neurology school, and I got out of neurochemistry and immunology and endocrinology. I thought I knew so much, but I didn't know what to do for this person dying from cancer, and even from what we think are the treatments of the cancer. So this Master's in Integrative Cancer Therapy has been a journey of mine for the past 2 years, and there's a school called A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, excuse me. And so I've gotten to learn so much about how the body works and what we need to do to fix conditions and help people reverse cancer. I have a cancer website. I have 2 of them. One is called Hope for Your Cancer, and one of them is called cancerfreedvd.com. hopeforyourcancer.com, cancerfreedvd.com. If you've got a friend or a loved one who has, maybe you have colon cancer, God forbid, but maybe you or somebody you know needs to watch this, because that could be part of the condition that they're suffering from. And we need to be able to look at what's causing the cancer. Stop fighting the cancer and start figuring out what caused it, and start working on those so you can stop it from making that cancer develop in the body. But anyway, back to this. Other mentors, Dr. Russell Blaylock, not a personal friend or mentor, never been in a class with him. I started doing research through information written by him and on videos of him on the internet, and it was just amazing how he was able to point out about different chemical reactions in the brain. And I have another great video on YouTube. It's called, I write this one down, Immunoexcitotoxicity. IMMUNOEXCITO. Xicitiy, I think I spelled it right, immunoexcitotoxicity. Dr. Robert Marshall, one of my favorite mentors and teachers. This Dr. Marshall, he's a PhD in biochemistry. He's got a degree in nutrition. He runs a laboratory and a clinic called Premier Research Labs. Most of the products I carry in my office are made by him and his company, and they are so super quality nutrients. We want to take nutrients that have been protected from the womb, from the time they were born until the time they get in your mouth and you consume them. We want to make sure there's no mercury on the pill. We want to make sure there's no magnesium stearate or cornstarch or titanium dioxide. We want to make sure there's no what we call excipients in the products. Any harmful chemicals added to cheapen the product, to cheapen their production, can actually harm you. You've got to know if you have a quality product or not a quality product. So Dr. Marshall has been a great mentor. He got me into the understanding of Chinese medicine and more about biochemistry functions in the body. Understand something before I even go further into this discussion. Chinese medicine has been around for over 5,000 years. Now they have air pollution there. That's pretty serious. But Chinese medicine has been around 5,000 years, and they have less of the diseases that we have in the United States. American medicine has been around for probably 130 plus or minus years. Not too long, 100 plus or minus to 5,000 years. Who has a greater experience with taking care of people? I know we have in the United States, at least if you're watching this, even though this is the World Wide Web, you could watch this in Italy, where I have patients who come to me. You can watch it in England or United Kingdom, excuse me. I have patients who come from there, from Venezuela. We have people who are coming from Norway and the Netherlands. And so all around the world you could watch this, but at least where I live and practice in the United States, people here think that we have the best medicine on the planet. We've got a lot of medicine here. We've got great hospitals and great doctors. It's good for acute care, not good. They don't do well with chronic conditions. A chronic illness needs a different approach than just taking a medicine. But with the Chinese medicine and what Dr. Marshall has shared with me, it's just incredible. It's incredible the knowledge that other people, we've got to be able to understand. It's not just about running a laboratory. We've got to look at, and we're going to point out to you, I'm going to bring my assistant Anna up in a few minutes, and you'll see a way that we can use these Chinese acupuncture meridians without using needles, of acupuncture needles, but we can go to these energy points on the body that they discovered 5,000 years ago and wrote in great history and great length of how we can actually change the function of organs and glands and systems and figure out what's wrong and what we can use naturally to make those organs and glands function the way that we intend to, function with great efficiency. Okay? Dr. Marshall, he's a great mentor. Dr. Rife, he was a genius scientist who created this electric medicine. And he was able to rid the body of infections. There's problems with the American Medical Association and so on. I won't get into that whole conspiracy idea, but you look up Rife, R-I-F-E, on the internet, and there's some different opinions, but if you really go and listen to his recordings, you're going to get some really good understanding. If you get time to sit through those, you're going to understand what this man's passion was and how incredible what his discovery was. And remember, a discovery that doesn't make a drug company money is not going to be looked at as the truth. People believe what the advertisements are showing about the drugs selling, you know, the hope of healing and so on, okay? Dr. Vojdani, I mentioned before. Dr. Gerson, we use some of the Gerson, modified Gerson therapies. I looked more into Gerson work when I started getting into this cancer work that I do. And I don't treat cancer. I'm not here to treat your Crohn's either. I'm not treating your condition. We're here to look at what's causing a cancer or a Crohn's or a celiac condition and helping to rid that and let the body treat itself and overcome this condition, okay? I'm not treating your Crohn's. I'm not treating cancer. But Dr. Gerson helped to heal many, 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 many dozens and dozens and dozens of people. They're not allowed in the US now, really. They've got a clinic in Mexico. But Dr. Gerson helped with juices and with enemas and healing cancer. And so we use some of his methods in practice here. And I've got another great mentor I don't have listed right up here, Dr. Michael Johnson. He's a close friend and colleague of mine. He's the one who got me into the functional neurology world. He's the one who pointed me in directions of getting me involved with blood chemistry readings and learning more about how we can come at the body in different angles to be able to fix what's going on with you. Okay, let's move on. Endless of hours of studies. Roger Williams in the 1950s, write this one down, biochemical individuality. And he said, every person's different. I alluded to that earlier. 100 people in a room with Crohn's have all different reasons. There could be different nutrient deficiencies, there could be different mineral deficiencies, there could be different infections, different toxins. We got to be able to find out what's going on with a person and not just treat them as every person with Crohn's gets this drug, gets this corticosteroid or this immunosuppressive drug or this NSAID or this whatever else they might throw at you. Biochemical individuality. And this is about my unique whole-body, drug-free, integrative, individualized Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowel, diverticulitis recovery program. And with your progressing Crohn's and celiac condition, your bowel symptom relief, healthcare needs being fulfilled by an advanced physician will keep increasing until you figure out what is going on and help yourself get well. And your relief will begin when you step outside your comfort zone. I don't mean you're comfortable at home, sitting there with this problem and going from doctor to doctor, but I'm saying step out of the medicine chest and say and the laboratory running and say that there's got to be another way. They must be missing something. There is a cause of my condition and somebody has to be able to help me get to the bottom of this. And that's what I'm going to tell you. I can help you do that and I will help you get relief, and if you decide to go along with what we've got going on here. So what causes Crohn's, celiac, and other bowel disorders? We're going to mention that in a few minutes. What are Crohn's, celiac medications? Why are these medications not going to help you really get well? Let's answer those questions. And which tests help you conclude you suffer from Crohn's, celiac, and irritable bowel? These are colonoscopies, endoscopies, blood tests, stool tests. Biopsies may help doctors conclude that you have celiac or you have Crohn's or you're just an IBS patient or you have diverticulitis. This is, maybe the screen might have dulled down a little bit because I've got an autofocus on my camera. I'm not in a professional studio here. This is in my office. But when a screen comes up that has a lot of white on it, you're going to see it's my kind of an auto tint happen in the camera. So keep watching. Nothing wrong with your television set. This is a biopsy, a piece of intestinal tissue that Dr. Aristo Vojdani, that immunologist I told you about a few times already, he took a sample of one of the technicians in his laboratory. They didn't have IBS, they didn't have Crohn's, they didn't have celiac, but he wanted to see, is there something called a leaky gut? Is there something that could be going on even without a symptom in the intestines? And this is intestinal tissue, and you see the break in the intestinal tissue. That is a true, real biopsy example of a leaky gut. And there are tests that can be run that can tell you if you do have a leaky gut. And I'll get into that in a little later on in this video, what causes the gut breakdown. Okay, medications used to treat Crohn's, celiac, irritable bowel, NSAIDs, I said, antibiotics. Watch a video, take this note, biofilms. Dr. Lonnie Herman, biofilms. You probably have never heard before that antibiotics may actually be causing more harm than good. Not just about killing some good cells and bacteria in your body. Watch that information about biofilms. And I've got great research on there with different PhDs in different parts of the different universities and around the world who are pointing out that there is an epidemic that's been created with medications. Immunosuppressive drugs are used to treat this. Experimental drugs, anti-diarrhea medications, laxatives, B12 injections, calcium support might be used. Immunosuppressive drugs have effects. Now, you know, they call them side effects. Listen, if I put rat poison out, whatever effect it has is the effect. There's no, well, it killed the rat, but it also killed the spider. It's the effect. It doesn't get a side effect was killing the spider. It is an effect, period. Humira, Remicade, Cimzia, methotrexate, cyclosporine, Sabri, Imuran, Purinethol. I'm trying to pronounce some of these. Are pretty complex names here. But let's look at something like Remicade. It inhibits TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha. And let's look at this, this diagram here. So these are showing you, it's kind of a good illustration of what intestinal tissue looks like. Your intestines have to be nice and plump and fresh with villi on the top, and they have to have these threads, these tight junctions that seal the intestinal tissue together. When there's a break in the intestinal tight junctions, then different pathogens can get through, like a parasite, perhaps. You live on a planet, don't think you can't get infected. It's not just strep infections and staph infections and the flu. You can get different kinds of amoebas. There's over 500 million amoeba infections a year. 500 million, half a billion registered amoeba infections a year. And some of these stool tests, they can't even find if somebody has an infection. There was a study done back in UC San Diego in 1988 where they were looking in dogs that were in a kennel. They were going to put them to sleep, and they wanted to run an experiment. They were looking in these dogs for a parasite called Giardia. They ran 10 stool tests per dog. That's 100 dogs, 10 tests, that's 1,000 stool tests were run. The results were 23% of the results showed Giardia parasite in these dogs. Only 23%. They autopsied those dogs. All of the dogs had the Giardia parasite. Not 23%, all of them. And that proved right there that the stool test can't always find what can be causing a condition in a mammal, in a human being. Back to this diagram. What you've got to understand, and I'm pointing this out again because of like Remicade decreases or inhibits tumor necrosis factor, so it's trying to stop the body's own alarm system of telling you something is wrong and stop the inflammation and the pain, and I get it. I'm not telling you that you should just drop that now, because if it's stopping your symptoms and it's helping you cope with life until we figure it out, and it can take some work. It's not a simple pill or a magic bullet that's going to do it. But you've got to keep doing what you're doing. This doesn't mean stop taking it, but let's understand why this works at reducing your symptoms. Whenever you have an antigen, an allergen, some toxin, something that gets in, a bug, something that gets in through the broken gut lining, the leaky gut, it gets in the bloodstream, and then we have these T cells and B cells that start reactions in the body. These immune cells, your soldiers, start producing a 5-alarm fire. Hey, there's a problem. Let's go fight and kill this infection or this toxin. Like an organophosphate, a pesticide that's on your tomato or your apple. And then we get a release of tumor necrosis factor alpha. And that creates inflammation. And that starts creating damage to the tissue. They're giving you a medication to stop this inflammatory process and let the infection or the toxin that caused the inflammatory process in the first place still exist in the body. You understand that? It's like saying you live in your house, you have a fire alarm, you have an alarm that will notify the police if somebody breaks in. So you're laying in bed, God forbid this happens, let me just use the storyline. You're laying in bed, somebody breaks in the house, you don't hear them. The alarm doesn't go off because somebody cut the wire to the alarm, cutting the tumor necrosis factor to the alarm in the body. They come and they put a gun to your head. Your phone, you can't get it. There's no more alarm calling the police. There's a fire in the kitchen and there's no fire alarm calling the fire department. Now what do you do? Well, I'll just let it go on and keep this person's gun to my head and have the fire burn the whole house down with me in it, because I lost my ability to signal the police and the fire department because somebody cut the wire. So hopefully you can embrace that when you stop the body's own soldiers, its own alarm system, its own defense mechanism from stopping the infections and stopping the toxins. But if you keep having poor digestive function, one of the main things here in your stomach is stomach acid that you need. Hydrochloric acid. And that hydrochloric acid acts as a disinfectant. So if you eat a piece of chicken that has an infection, not just salmonella, there's lots of other bacteria on this planet. You eat it, it goes in that stomach. Your stomach has to have strong acid to break the food down so it gets in the intestines and they don't have to do too much breaking down. And it has to disinfect the food. That's two of the jobs. There's another job. I'll get into that maybe later on. But your stomach has to disinfect. When you go, hey, but Dr. Herman, I'm on an antacid because I've got too much stomach acid. I've got heartburn. Ah, so they give you a proton pump inhibitor that decreases the stomach acid more. What can cause problems in the stomach acid production? Let's talk about that a minute and help you understand something about your so-called too much acid and acid reflux or heartburn. Let's understand this. As a child, you need salt. You don't think salt is good? It can cause blood pressure problems? Buy a book called, write this down, Water and Salt. You need to read that one. Salt is essential for life. Pure pink salt that has minerals on it, not the white treated garbage that's been destroyed that you get in your frozen foods and in the deli meats and on your table that you shake on your food in the restaurant or at home. Salts help, as a child, help your adrenal glands produce adrenaline, and the adrenaline as a child helps your stomach produce your hydrochloric acid. So what if you didn't have enough salt when you were a kid? You can't produce stomach acid. And you eat a food that has an infection on it. And it's not a food poisoning kind of infection, just a little one. It gets in the stomach, gets in the intestines, and it goes in the body. Or you're taking now, you're an adult and you get some H. pylori bacteria infection that goes in and starts paralyzing the stomach acid producing cells. Maybe you had normal stomach acid as a kid, but later in life it started to decrease just as aging. And now you got a bug in there that's destroying the acid production more. So the food you eat, it sits there, it's got an infection, sits there, it can't be broken down because you have weak stomach acid. When you have weak stomach acid, that food starts to rot. The infection can crawl wherever it wants. This is real. And that food rots. And what happens is your body creates a byproduct called lactic acid. And the lactic acid is what creates the burning effect in the chest. So you take an antacid, that doesn't mean anti-stomach acid, it's antacid, whatever kind of acid. So it decreases that acid in the stomach, that lactic acid, but it doesn't help you digest better. It actually destroys your stomach's ability to break food down and disinfect the food. So it leads to a whole nother host of concerns and problems here. Your stomach has to be strong. It has to have good stomach acid to break things down. So now you get an infection, you get a release of tumor necrosis factor alpha, that goes up and it starts alarming the tissues, you get inflammation, you got diarrhea, you got pain, so they give you an immunosuppressive. Guess what happens with these immune imbalances? Instead of being balanced, you have an immune imbalance with your Crohn's or celiac or IBS or diverticulitis condition. And what happens from these immunosuppressive drugs, these effects, besides nausea and malabsorption, cancer can develop because you can't fight these cancer cells. You can't fight infections. And brain infection is even linked to some of these medications. Go back, find that screen where I just showed you different medications for Crohn's or celiac, and look them up. Go to WebMD, look them up, and see what the side effects are. Side effects. According to WebMD, corticosteroids that can be used with your condition. Corticosteroids, oral steroids, such as, let's say, prednisone might be used. And it can be a life-saving treatment for people with Crohn's disease. During serious Crohn's flares that affect organs such as the kidneys, and high doses of steroids can quickly control the symptoms. They say it can be a listen to this, on WebMD it says it can be a life-saving treatment for people with Crohn's. Let's read the next paragraph, because they contradict themselves. However, steroids, like corticosteroids, like prednisone and so on, can also have troublesome or severe side effects. Why does it have to be a side effect again? It's an effect. Including weight gain, mood changes, depression. In the long term, these medicines can increase the risk of bone density problems called osteoporosis and bone fractures, and other bone complications because you can get infections in the bone. Infections, weight-related conditions, diabetes, or high blood pressure. So taking these corticosteroids are life-saving, but they can lead to blood pressure problems, that can lead to stroke or heart disease, or that is heart disease, diabetes, that can lead to losing limbs and eyes and you name it, and and bone problems and osteoporosis. Is that safe, or is that not? Kind of, to me, it sounds like a contradiction. First, let's review why these medications at different doses don't work for you. And you might have antibodies in your labs, and we're going to understand why these antibodies are attacking your tissue. Why are they attacking your tissues? Why is your body doing this to itself, or is it doing it to itself? And I've had people say, but Dr. Herman, my doctor told me there is no information why my body is doing this to itself. My labs are inconclusive. The biopsy came back normal. The intestinal, the endoscopy and the biopsy, the colonoscopy came up normal. My blood tests are normal. I do see elevated IgG or IgM or IgA, immunoglobulins. Those are showing that there's a problem, but it doesn't tell me why they're elevated. They didn't just go get drunk and turn out to, get elevated in your body. It's why are they doing what they're doing? You don't just have soldiers go out and start, well, maybe here in the US, I don't know, let's not get political, but let's understand something, that your soldiers, your white blood cells, your T cells, and your lymphocytes and your neutrophils, these cells in your body are supposed to fight toxins and infections. If you keep eating food that has toxin on it, you can't stop the fight. You get white blood cells that are in disarray. They don't know what to do anymore because they're fighting a battle they can't win because you're eating bad foods. Or you have something else I'm going to show you in a minute that's quite surprising. But they say that their labs are normal. And the doctor said that the only option available is corticosteroids like prednisone, NSAIDs, and some other immunosuppressive medications. And I'm telling you, it's not. Allow me to share with you the real research that directly points to why your immune system is doing what it's doing, seemingly horrible thing to your body. Seemingly, how dare you, Dr. Herman, people have said, because my body feels terrible, and don't tell me that I don't have something going wrong. And I'm telling you, I know. Just give me a few more minutes to share this with you. Look at this screen here. It might be difficult for you to see here on your TV right now because there's so much I'm sharing on this screen. But in the middle here, this intestinal disease, call it Crohn's, call it celiac, call it IBS, call it diverticulitis, there could be viral connections in this web of physiological dysfunction of the intestines. Viruses. You could have a pH that's too acidic. You might have your cells that don't have enough energy to function. We got to look at the exact cell. There's maybe 80, 90, 100 trillion cells in your body. You got to be able to know how to test the cell and see if that cell has what it requires. Does it have enough iron? Does it have enough oxygen? Does it have enough enzymes? Does it have enough CoQ10? Does it have enough potassium? What does it need that's going to get it to function normally? And what does it not need that might be harming it? You'll see in just a few minutes. Nutrient deficiencies, sugar imbalances, parathyroid instability. We can test. Dehydration, I find that very common with people. They're drinking coffee like it's it's a hydrating fluid. Every cup of coffee you drink, it creates an acidic content in the body. It can have pesticides that are sprayed on the bean that's in the coffee. You're drinking poison, literally poison on the bean, even if it's some $4 cup of coffee or $10 cup of coffee or 7-cent cup of coffee. You got to know that you're drinking poisons because this is one of the most lucrative beans in the world. They are spraying pesticides to stop the bugs from eating their crops. You're drinking hot pesticide on your coffee. Toxic water. The other thing, about dehydration. Every cup of coffee you drink, you're dehydrating your kidneys. You're dehydrating your body. You need to fill up with water, clean, fresh, clean, filtered water. There could be adrenal stress and fatigue. If the adrenals are not okay, the intestines can't be okay. Constipation problems. The adrenals' number one job is fluid balance. Number 2 is settling inflammation. And number 3 is a little bonus is energy. When the adrenals are sick, when the adrenals can be infected, when the adrenals can have certain stresses from emotions, when the adrenals when we're not getting fluids in the body, when you're not drinking enough water. I'm not talking about Crystal Light and Coca-Cola and Pepsi and 7-Up and Mountain Dew and iced tea and all these different drinks that are on the shelves and Gatorade and so on. I'm talking about pure, fresh water that was put here by Mother Nature, God, whatever you believe in. Fresh, clean water you need. When you don't drink the water and you're drinking all the other stuff that's out there, you're getting dehydrated. Your brain says to your adrenals, your number one job is fluid balance. If I can't balance my fluids, I'm going to die. And since you can't do it for me, something's wrong with you. I'm putting you on the side. You're out to lunch, I'm going to take over. What am I going to do? I'm going to stop the intestinal function. I'm going to slow it down so slow and make constipation occur because I need fluid. So instead of a nice soft stool that comes out, you might be getting little golf balls or ping pong ball kind of stool that comes out after you finally get to go to the bathroom, you take enough Metamucil or something else or stool softener. You've got to understand, if you're not hydrating, your body's going to slow down the intestines to suck out as much fluid from the stool as possible because it needs fluid balance. And guess what else happens? Your stool is toxic waste matter that's supposed to evacuate the premises. So the longer it sits there, the more toxic absorption, toxic waste that's getting absorbed back in the body. That is deadly. And one of the cancer books is called Cancer Treatment. It's a textbook I got from Dr. Haskell about colon cancer. One of the main causes of colon cancer is constipation. Another problem could be xenoestrogens. These are fake estrogens that can come from plastic bottles and can come from meats and so on. So those fake estrogens can take place of real estrogens in the body. They can lead to hormonal imbalances and gut problems and so on. There could be neurological problems like the brain. You might have an infection in your spleen that's letting, your spleen is the checkpoint of your body. Your spleen is the point in your body that says, good cell, go back to work, bad cell, evacuate the premises. What if your spleen has an infection? What if your spleen is tired? And the bad cell, it's like, you know what, I'm hungover, I don't have enough energy, you guys just go back to work, whatever. So you could have a bad cell that goes back in the body, and that cell is supposed to go back and fill in the place of another sick cell in the intestines. Can it do that? No, because that, or it can, but it's not going to bring health to the intestines or bring health to your heart or another part of your body. There could be emotional problems. There could be radiation exposure that causes harm to your tissues in your intestines. There could be nanobacteria. That's another big one. There could be this kind of bacteria that actually can stress and eat on your tissues in your intestines. It's terrible. There could be toxic food. There could be Lyme infection. There could be free radicals. There could be persistent organic pollutants, DDT. Since it was used around Vietnam, that stuff will linger on this planet for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. There are dioxins in the water. There are styrenes from styrofoam. These are cancer promoters. They may not induce the cancer, but they will promote it. You're drinking, you're trusting yourself, your body, your family, to other manufacturers of products. You're not growing your water and growing your food on your own. So you've got to trust other companies. It's mixed up around, around these parts. There could be parasites, there could be bacteria, there could be mold, there could be fungus in your intestines. There could be too much excitotoxin production, glutamate, excess glutamate. I can get into that later on another video called immunoexcitotoxicity. I discussed that one in detail. There could be electromagnetic fields. I'll get to that later. Interference fields. There could be problems with dental work. There could be pesticides. Viral infections. Let's look at this. Dr. Panjwani in the University of Cambridge in United Kingdom, 1995, he said virus-induced autoimmune disease. And this was Essays in Virology, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, London, UK. Now what he said is that your genes, 35% of your genes are viral genes. You've heard of cancer genes, right? We got into that earlier. People believe they have cancer in a gene, or maybe there's an Alzheimer's gene. There are viruses as part of our genetic makeup. He found in his research that there's 35% of our genes are viral. Now there's a Dr. Brzezinski who takes care of people with brain cancer and others in Texas in the United States. He came up with his own discovery in the laboratory. He's a PhD, very smart man. But he was able to share with the world in his research that there is a process called deacetylation. Why is that important? What does that word mean? What does that big, foreign word deacetylation mean? That means, and what you probably don't know because you weren't born with an owner's manual. I don't mean to, put you down. I'm just saying we're not born like getting a car that has an owner's manual or a refrigerator has an owner's manual. Your body wasn't born with one, so you've got to try to weed out through all the research and see what's going on and what's right for you. What Dr. Brzezinski showed is that every single cell, when you're born, let's say you have 80, 90, 100 trillion cells, every cell has 90 million protectors. These are known as methyl groups. These are soldiers warriors that protect you from the virus or the cancer showing up on the cell. Every meal you eat, research is showing this, every cooked meal, cooked over 250 degrees, cooked over boiling point, every cooked meal causes you to lose 1,800 protectors per cell per meal. 3 meals a day, 5,400 protectors are lost per cell per day. Eating snacks, 4 meals, 5 meals, cooked crackers and cereals, you're losing protectors every meal. 5,400 protectors per day on an average 3-meal diet times 7 days a week is probably around 30-something thousand protectors lost per cell. Multiply that by 52 weeks a year. Multiply that by how many years you're alive. So as the breakdown of the cell occurs, or the protection of the cell occurs, and that can happen not only from cooked food, nail polish, hairspray, smelling blacktop when they coat a new driveway, roof tar, cologne. There's a number. I can go on and on and on. Metal in the mouth can cause you to lose these protectors from your cells at an alarming rate. And what happens is the cells can protect themselves, and the virus that's in the gene that was proven can now express itself. You don't always get herpes from the outside in. You might have a cold sore. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have a Coxsackie virus, or you have an Epstein-Barr virus, or you have mono. It's not always from the outside in you caught it, that you can blame it on somebody else. It could be from the inside. And your ability to protect your gene and stop the virus from expressing itself, you may have lost that ability. And now you have viruses that could be in the intestines. What is your immune system going to do? What's it supposed to do? What are your soldiers supposed to do for you? Fight the virus. But they can't kill the virus, and they can't kill your DNA. So there's always a fight going on. There's always an inflammatory process that's going on, because maybe it is in your genes, but the environmental stresses turn that virus on. You got it? We got to be able to turn it off so the body stops attacking the virus. But these autoimmune diseases, Dr. Panjwani was able to prove that it's not the body just attacks itself, it's that there's viral genes. He was able to actually prove that these autoimmune conditions like a Crohn's or celiac are infection driven, and most of the infections are viruses. There could be toxins as well, but infection, most infection is virus. Most virus can be from our own genetic makeup. Possibly your diet, seeds, nuts, beans, grains. Other possible links to diet we'll discuss as we go along here. Complications with nuts. They have ingredients, they have components of them called saponins, phytic acid, enzyme inhibitors, aflatoxin, mycotoxin, possible irradiation, gamma irradiation. Look up another video. Pause this, write this down. Dr. Lonnie Herman, food irradiation. Watch that video. It is alarming. You may be eating olive oil that went through irradiation, or you may be eating eggs that were irradiated with gamma irradiation, and that irradiation process to stop the pests and the bacteria and the salmonella can actually cause cancer in the food. Watch that video. Mercury fumigation, your cereals, your wheat. Mercury fumigation. You don't believe me? I'm talking things you never heard. Write it down. Do your own research. But I'm going to show you some articles right now. In an article, histochemistry article in February of 2000, hemolysis, that means breaking down of a blood cell, of human red blood cells, erythrocytes, with saponin affects the membrane structure. What does that mean? In chia seeds, in hemp seeds, and different nuts and seeds, they have saponins, and these saponins they have a surfactant that they become. It's like when you soap and you get the lather. They have that lathering, that surfactant effect. And what that does is it breaks down, around every cell you have a lipid layer. You need lipids to protect and cushion the cells and stop bad things from getting in, like infections from getting into the blood cell. Sounds logical. It's kind of like a bumper car in an amusement park. It has a bumper on it, so when you get hit by another car, you don't get a dent, or it doesn't break open the bumper car you're in. Well, your cells have bumpers around them. They're called fat layers or lipid layer. The saponins from these nuts and seeds, they destroy the lipid layer. Listen to what this says. Incubation of the cells with saponin makes the lipid layer permeable to macromolecules. Maybe it's a little nanobacteria. Maybe it's a parasite. Maybe it's a bacteria. Maybe it's a fungus that can now get into the cell and make that cell sick. And it says that these saponin-laced, these these red blood cells that are broken down do not reseal, thus indicating irreversible damage of the lipid layer. That is serious stuff. So you have a breakdown of your cell, and now you get an infection that can go right into the cell. And how many cells make up your intestines? How many? Have you ever counted? I don't know. Trillions of cells that can be broken down because you're eating certain foods. Saponins continued. It says here, I already talked about this. They are soap-like and they came from plants. That's how they made soap years ago. Aflatoxin on peanuts and other nuts. Aflatoxins, according to Wikipedia, aflatoxins are naturally occurring mycotoxins that are produced by these kinds of fungi, and they're named after a doctor in 1960 who found it. And they say here, aflatoxins are toxic and among the most cancer-causing substances known. You know, the FDA in the United States allows a certain amount of aflatoxin on the peanuts to get into the food supply. Wikipedia says about mycotoxins, which again, mycotoxins from aflatoxins. Mycotoxins because mycotoxins weaken the receiving host. So you eat peanut butter, you eat peanuts that aren't taken care of properly to make sure that you're eating a healthy nut. I'm not telling you to stop eating nuts and so on, and nut butters. You've got to know if you're putting in quality to your body. You've got to prepare your food. You've got to know what you're giving yourself. And what they're saying here is it weakens the receiving host. It weakens you. You're the receiving host of the peanut butter, of the peanut, of the almond, of the Brazil nut, of the pistachio, of the chia seed. Some health effects found in animals include death. In humans also with mycotoxins include death, identifiable diseases or health problems, weakened immune systems. In Chapter 4 of Cancer Treatment by Dr. Charles Haskell, aflatoxin is the main cause of liver cancer. Phytic acid in nuts, seeds, beans, and grains. Phytic acid is the most common anti-nutrient in grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Phytic acid protects the plant seed from premature germination. If not properly released before cooking, when consumed, these acids combine with important minerals like calcium, zinc, magnesium, iron, and copper and prevent their absorption. You might be taking calcium supplements because you want to try to get stronger bones, which that doesn't work. But let's say you take in a calcium supplement and you are eating in that day, you had some, wheat flakes or some bran flakes or some corn flakes, and you had some other, you had maybe like a nut butter, or you had some almonds or something, and those foods can block the absorption of minerals like calcium, zinc, magnesium, iron, copper, and prevent absorption. And blocking these minerals, these elements, can actually cause harm to the cellular function in your intestines and the brain and the heart and every other part of your body. Phytic acid, over time consuming these, leads to health problems including digestive irritability, impaired immune function. That doesn't mean low, that could be anything. It could just be a strange inflammatory problem taking place. Allergies, skin irritations, decaying teeth, not just from sugary foods, folks. Bone loss, anemia, hormone disruption, altered brain chemistry, poor physiological development. Phytic acids are found in nut butters, processed cereals, crackers, bread, soy formula. There is more to this. There are enzyme inhibitors in the plant foods that you eat, like nuts, seeds, grains, and beans. And these enzymes are stopping the predator from eating the plant. These inhibitors block enzyme function, most notably the uptake of trypsin, an enzyme responsible for digesting protein. So if you have a decrease in trypsin, because you're eating certain beans that you don't prepare properly, you're eating certain nuts and grains you don't prepare properly, and you can't make trypsin that helps you digest your protein, what happens when you eat a steak? And you got poor stomach acid, and you got other infections, and what happens to your intestines? They can't handle breaking down the meat because they don't have the proper enzymes, because the foods that you're eating are stopping the enzymes from being produced in your body. They're trying to stop you. These plants are not stupid, they're smart. They want to survive just like you want to survive, just like a lion is king of the jungle. You think you're king of the planet? That's what humans are, it's our planet. Those plants have something built into them to try to stop themselves from getting eaten. Research shows overconsumption of these foods can lead to increased secretion of pancreatic enzymes and enlarged pancreas and benign tumors, pancreatitis, cancer. Enzyme inhibitors, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, impaired digestion, immune suppression, increased allergies, severe intestinal issues, and declined mental function. You got to understand something when it comes to biophysics. There's energy in the body, and there's something about the way your cells function. And taking synthetic medications and eating genetically modified foods is harmful to the cell. It's harmful to the life, the well-being of the cell. We can go deeper into that about biophysics. Another great mentor, researcher, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp. He's a biophysicist, and he was able to prove that every cell has light in it. It's called a biophoton, and he was able to prove that we can measure it. He was able to prove what can make it sick, what can make that cell not function properly. And medicine doesn't help it function better. So, infections, I say, that can cause problems. Let's look, and people say, but I don't have a fever, I don't get sores. Some people do have mouth sores. Some people do get fevers with your condition. Let's take a look at this picture right here. This is a picture, it's toilet paper with a worm that came out of one of my patients. Beautiful, young physical therapist with an autoimmune condition and bowel problems and insomnia and chronic pain, neuropathy around the body. We found Lyme infection. We found a number of things, and mercury in the teeth. She was doing an enema. I have to romance some people into doing enemas in my practice to clean the liver and clean the intestines. When she did the, it was like her 20, she said not 30 times, but 20-something enema, this worm came out of her. She caught it on the tissue paper. I tested it. It was a parasite. So we're cleansing the liver. At this point, we're still cleansing the liver. She's just about done with that parasite killing protocol that we're on. This was in her liver. There was no lab that showed a liver problem. She had an inflammatory autoimmune condition. She had bowel problems, but she never had any findings on the liver that showed that she had a liver problem. A worm came out of her intestines that came out of her liver. Other videos I've created, I already told you, biofilms, free radicals, look them up. My whole approach is different because we're going to get to the causes of your chronic condition. And you're going to understand why what I do is different and how what I do is different by this next slide. Here is an example of a patient care plan. And there are many different points up here, and we're going to get to why these are all important. Right now we're probably on this video right now, this information, probably into a good hour and a few minutes. So we still have a little while to go. So if you got to pause it, but you got to just keep on getting this information because you deserve to get well, you deserve the answers now, and you deserve to get better, and I'm going to help you get there if you decide to go along and do what it takes to get well and stop just by taking a pill. You got to get your pH in order. You got to be properly hydrated. You got to fix the incontinence problem that some people have. We're going to be able to fix your constipation and diarrhea, detoxing the liver, disinfect the liver, improve the cell energy. We have to take certain dietary changes. Maybe there are foods like gluten and dairy, maybe the nuts and the seeds and the beans. Maybe there's toxins on the food. Maybe the tomato you're eating actually, it looks great and it says organic on it, but maybe it really wasn't organic. Maybe it was sprayed with some pesticides so it doesn't go bad, or herbicides or fungicides so it doesn't go bad so quickly. Or your strawberry doesn't go so bad so quickly in the store. Because if the store that buys that food and carries it, they want to sell it so they make a profit. They don't want to keep throwing things away because fungus grows on them, right? So you got to become more aware. I'm able to teach you and your family members how to actually test a 2-second food quality test when you go shopping in the store, so you know if you're buying a quality food or not. Okay, there's infusion drink. We use certain nutrients that are liquid nutrients that you can get B vitamins and so on that are already broken down into the user-friendly form. So you drink a bit of this nutrient throughout the day so you have the right dose. It's kind of like getting an IV of good medication, but through natural things, like there could be vitamin D in there, and there could be B vitamins in there. Maybe we need some antioxidants in there, and anti-inflammatories. It really depends on what's going on with you. And I have some ways, I have some tools that I could test, some strategies to test exactly what's going on in your body and where. You know what, I'm going to show you something right now. My assistant Anna, who's been behind the camera, she's going to come around right now. If you can come up here, Anna. And she's somebody who you'll get to talk to on the phone if you call to make an appointment. We'll give you the number at the end here. But I'm going to show you something with Chinese medicine, because I was really impressed when I started running laboratories that I learned in neurochemistry school and immunology school and blood chemistry and endocrinology. I could run blood tests I could run blood tests and interpret the ones that you have from your doctors. I could run stool testing. I could run saliva testing. I could run urine testing. I was doing all these, but I wasn't getting to the answers in people. And when I talk about Chinese medicine, one thing that we've got to know is the Chinese were able to figure out there are points on the body that they deal with acupuncture that can show where the intestines are. So it's probably a little bit below the screen right now, but there's a point below next to the belly button on the right of your belly button, and on the left, that's the right and left large intestine point. Below the belly button is the small intestine. So we're going to go to a part of Anna's body, and we're going to use what's called kinesiology. This is one way that I can do it that's easy for you to understand in this video. I do have other methods that I can share with you if you ever come in, when you come in to my office for a one-on-one consult exam. But let's watch here. I want you to hold this arm up as tight, as strong as you can. Anna. Don't let it down. Like I could hang on this thing. It is strong, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to take two of my fingers. Our fingers have charges, and what the biophysicists are saying is that we can actually feel energy in the body. I know this is different for you, but hey, we got to do what works. Not just what sounds right to you if you've never experienced this before, okay? You got to do what works, and that's what I'm all about, results. It's all about getting you results. So right next to her belly button, point out where your belly button is. Okay, so we're going to go next to her belly button to the intestines. Now, I'm touching it, or I could have her touch it. Hold up this arm as strong as you can, Anna. Strong. I'm going to let go of her intestines. Hold it up strong. Go back. You put your fingers on the intestines. Next to the belly button on the right side. Press in firm. Press firm into the tissue. Hold it strong. I want you to take some medicine. Let's take some B vitamins. Hold that with you and press on the intestines. If that's the right medicine for the intestines, she's going to be strong. If it's not the right, she's going to be weak. Weak?
Yes.
Right? Let's take some magnesium. Let's put that, I'll hold it in your hand here. Now, if this is right, her body's going to like it. Put it there. Press firm. If it's the right one, she's going to be strong. Super weak, right? Let's take some, let's take this fiber. Hold that. Put your two fingers on the intestines. Hold it up as strong as you can. Solid. Look, I could hang on this. I could hang here. Let's go back and show you again with something that didn't work for her. Hold on to this. Hold it. Very weak. So, that shows us that we're able to find out what's wrong with a system like the heart, or the thymus gland, or the stomach, or the sleep point, or the thyroid, or the parathyroid, or the pituitary. There's points around the body that the Chinese figured out 5,000 years ago where we can figure out what's wrong with that organ and what medicine we need to use to fix that organ. Okay? All right, Anna, thank you. She's delightful. You get to talk to her when you call up to make an appointment here. And let's get back to this. So there's mud detoxing therapy. We'll talk about that in a few more minutes. These muds can actually, they were brought back by the early Egyptians from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and they're able to help to detox the body and reset the function of certain organs. It's truly incredible what I see with these mud therapies in my office. Parasitic elimination, I find parasites, I find bacteria, we can find a number of different kinds of infections and metals in the intestines. Brain-based therapy, remember I said if the brainstem's not working right, we have to charge it up and make it tell the gut how to work. Intestinal repair, supplements for systems, there could be magnesium, there could be salt, there could be potassium, there could be fixing a stomach infection. There's a number of different ones. I can go on for hours about all the supplements that we use. Nanobacteria have to be reduced. I find in people that in their bloodstream they have these bacteria that can actually line the arteries with calcium deposits in the arteries. We've got to kill them. Because if that organism, without antibiotics by the way, because if that organism is blocking blood flow getting to the intestines, not only is your immune system trying to fight that infection, but you can't get enough blood flow to make sure you bring enough oxygen or nutrients to your intestines. You follow that? Biofilm removal. Watch that video on biofilm. But there are layers of biofilms from chronic infections over the years. We have to use something that can destroy those biofilms that these infections hide under. Removing root canals, dental work. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. You're going to see pictures of patients' teeth. Removing root canals, removing mercury that can be causing problems in the intestines. Replacing composites, sometimes that's the problem. Rife machine to kill infections in the body and help the lymphatic system drain. Fixing sleep patterns. If you can't sleep all night, you can't make enough adrenaline. If you can't make enough adrenaline, you can't sustain your magnesium. You can't sustain your magnesium, you can't have proper cellular function. Proper chelation. Removing xenoestrogens. Sodium, potassium are optimized in a person. Killing the adrenal infection. Disinfecting the bone, remediating the electricity around them. Another patient had to do various things. We can go on this, we can talk about this for a while, but I commonly find dental infections, I find gum infections, I find liver problems, I find parasites, I find the pH is acidic. Some of these are pretty common. I find sleep disorders. In Chinese medicine, they say right behind the right ear here, this is the right sleep point, behind the left ear is the left sleep point. What we've got to know about sleep is the gallbladder has an energy point that terminates at the right ear. If the gallbladder is infected, if the gallbladder is weak, if the gallbladder has been removed, you can't fall asleep. Falling asleep is a problem. Staying asleep. If you can't stay asleep, it's digestion. Maybe you got weak stomach acids, you can't break your food down, and or you get infections in the gut, whether it's the spleen, the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, the intestines, the stomach. Somewhere in this gut, the kidneys, the adrenals, there's infection, and it's not letting the body rest. Some of these bugs can get up when you're trying to sleep at 1 in the morning, they're awake feasting on you and your food. So that'll wake you up at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So if you can't fall asleep, gallbladder. If you can't stay asleep, digestion and infection. If you're waking up and you're like, oh, I'm groggy, I just can't get up in the morning. Why am I so tired? I don't feel just refreshed. That's because most often it's scrambled brain chemistries. And it can even be the electricity around you. So people taking depression medication, people are having gut inflammation, can't make the right serotonin, they can't have not proper brain function if they got hormonal imbalances because they've got gut inflammation that can lead to bad brain chemistries. So we've got to fix it all. So can't fall asleep, gallbladder, can't stay asleep, digestion, infections in the gut and these organs. And waking up tired is because you have either scrambled brain chemistries that we have to fix. We have a product that will do that. And or there's problems with melatonin production because of electricity around you. I'll show you this example in just a moment. The body's pH needs to be between 6.4 and 7.0. If it's a tenth, every 10th degree below 6.4, you're losing a 10-fold amount of oxygen to your tissues. If you can't get oxygen to your intestines because your body's too acidic, just think of what that's going to do to your intestinal function. Causes of acidity: foods deficient in minerals, red meat, coffee. I already talked about this before. Even bone infection and toxins in the bone. Your bone makes your white blood cells. It makes your red blood cells. If your bone is sick, if things are not right at the bone level, you can't make healthy blood cells. You can't make healthy blood cells. You can't have the right pH. You can't have the right immune function. We have problems there. We already talked about that. If the pH is above and it's at a 7.5 to an 8.0, that's bad because your kidneys are going to start releasing ammonia. And that can also be harmful to the bloodstream and the organs and the tissues and the intestines. What I recommend is using a marine coral that's highly ionized, vitamin D, aloe. This is a common mixture that we use to be able to start boosting the pH, or at least boosting the mineral content. But we have to go deeper. We have to look at that pH and say, is it caused by infection? Is it caused by mineral deficiencies? Is it caused by diet? Do we have to change the diet? Do we have to stop with the coffee? What's going on there? Okay, safe supplements. Look up this report, Consumer Reports, 10 surprising dangers of vitamins and supplements. Look that up. Most of the products you're buying, the supplements, even if they're very expensive, they can have harmful toxins in them. They're not going to be good for you. You should know about this. We only use high quality supplements, high quality. We got to make sure that we do a test on the supplements. I make sure that all my supplements are quality supplements that have the energy for the cell to make the cell function right. B vitamins you're taking, most B vitamins are coal tar derived. Coal tar is not something you really need to eat. Your B vitamins shouldn't be from coal tar. These B vitamins should be from plant sources, once living. Vitamin D is commonly from sheep's wool. You're not going to eat sheep's wool. Vitamin D comes from other sources. You got to make sure you're getting quality nutrients in your body, because you could be taking something that's a vitamin, a multivitamin that your doctor tells you take that, and that could be causing a lot of the disruption in the intestines. No enriched foods. Do this search. Write this note down. Buyer beware or buyer be aware. Magnetic cereals. This man takes a bowl with water, puts a flake of a wheat and a flake of a corn cereal on, and you see it floating around on the top of the water. He takes a magnet, and wherever the magnet goes, the cereal goes. How does that happen? Metal is attracted to a magnet, not cereal, not a grain like corn or wheat or bran. They're crushing rock forms of iron, enriched cereals, enriched flours. They're crushing rock forms of iron and they're putting it into the cereal, into the food. Your body can't assimilate these rock forms of iron. They found those rock forms of iron in brain tissue causing Alzheimer's and things. I mean, it's just sick. It's sad. Buy quality foods. You want to make sure you don't have organophosphates on your foods. You got to learn a 2-second quick test to know, is that tomato, is that strawberry, is that lettuce that I'm buying quality, or was it sprayed with poison before I got it? Was it sprayed with pesticides, like so much mass-produced greens and fruits and the food that they're feeding your cattle, that you're eating, the meat and the steak. Even if you're spending $80 on a steak in a restaurant or $40 on a steak for your birthday, you went out for a very expensive dinner. How do you know what they're feeding that animal? You got to become aware of what's going into your body. You got to stop the madness with your intestines, and we can do it. Know that poisons go on these foods, and these can harm you. These organophosphates, these xenoestrogens, can actually harm your hormonal balance. They can harm the body function. They can harm the gut. They can harm the brain. Further, we already talked about these. Bad oils. Take out corn oil, take out canola oil. Those are bad. Make sure it's no GMO ingredients in your diet. You may have to stop gluten for a while. You may have to stop dairy for a while. You may have to stop corn for a while. There's labs you can run. There's tests we can do in here about that to determine what kinds of foods are bad for you. Also, know this. American grapes are one of the highest sprayed with pesticides sprayed fruits. American wine comes from American grapes. So what does that tell you? You're drinking a wine that can maybe cost you $10, maybe $5, or maybe $50, or maybe $30 or $80 or whatever it costs you. And if it's coming from an American grape, you better be careful and know, is it coming from a quality grape that was no pesticide sprayed, or is it coming from a grape that had pesticide sprayed on it? Because those pesticides are poisons, and those can destroy the function of your intestines. Dehydration, we already talked about this, but understand something. Your body weight can be, let's say it's 200 pounds, let's say 200-pound body weight. You should be drinking 100 ounces of water, filtered, clean water a day. Maybe with a little mineral additive to it. If you weigh 100 pounds, 50 ounces of water a day. 130 pounds, 65 ounces of water a day. You get it? 180 pounds, 90 ounces of water a day. Hydration. Your body needs water. Antioxidants. You know that research shows between 1985 and 2000, 50% less antioxidants in the American food. We need antioxidants to help us absorb our thyroid hormones. We need antioxidants to calm down the oxidative stress from all the toxins and the infections in the body. Teeth, dental work, root canals, amalgam fillings, previously removed amalgam fillings, crowns and caps, gum infections, cavitations, composite sealers, analgesics, and trauma. Cavitations, when they go in and take out an infected tooth, and they don't clean up the ligament or the bone or the gum, you could still have an infection there that's dripping infection into the body. Let's look at something else about root canals, and write this one down. Dangers of root canals. Look at this. There could be bacteria and parasites and Lyme infection and viruses living, and fungal infections and mold living inside a root canal. There was a study that the Germans did that proved that the root canals are not sealed off completely shut. And they did a study, I think it was in the 50s or 60s. I read this in a book called Cancer, A Second Opinion. And they pulled out the pulp, cut the nerve, cut the root, cut the blood supply, and pulled out the inflamed pulp. That was pain on the nerve. So now there's no inflamed pulp, there's no nerve and no blood supply, so they can't feel the pain. The tooth is dead now. They put ink in the tooth. Then they finished the root canal job, and then they sealed it shut, and it looked perfect. In 30 minutes, ink spots appeared on the tonsils of that person. But I just spent $2,000 on my tooth. What's wrong? What's going on? Ink came out of the root canal without blood flow to the tooth. It still came out and ended up on the tonsils. There's more stories about that, but you got to know the tooth is not sealed, it's not perfect, and it can get infection from the food or some other way. It can get in that root canal. It now becomes a breeding ground for more of these infections, and those infections, they grow and they produce toxic gases called thioethers that match up to the chemistry of mustard gas from World War I, the same thing as what's in chemotherapy. And these bacteria and these parasites can just keep dripping into the body. Here's the home tonsils, if you still have them. They become your infection storage house. If the tonsils were pulled out because you had tonsillitis as a kid, that's because there was too much infection. They never got the infection rid. They They just pulled out the tonsils for the inflammation. Brilliant. Look up dangers of root canals. Dr. Weston Price found, he was a dentist back in the early 1930s or 40s or so, I don't remember the exact year. He found that when he was pulling a root canal, the person's chronic disease disappeared. That might not be the only thing now, because there's more going on, more complication these days than there was in the early 1900s. Let's look at two different patients who had autoimmune diseases. They also had bowel problems and bloating and constipation and diarrhea. It wasn't called Crohn's or celiac, but these two people had symptoms like a person with Crohn's or celiac or diverticulitis. Let's look at this first. Excuse me, let me get my hand straight here. Let's look at this side of this picture first. This was a person's crown that was on top of the tooth. It's upside down, so you see this metal shell that fit over the rest of the tooth in the mouth, and this white part is the porcelain. Now this is on the tray next to this person in the dental office. I work with dentists around who do biological dentistry. When he took that, she thought it was normal. I told her there's something wrong, and either you're going to do what needs to be done or you're going to keep complaining about your problem and I can't help you. She goes to the dentist. He takes the cap off. The tooth looked fine. I mean, it was perfect white, and it just had this little silver lining at the bottom. When he pulled it off, that's what was underneath. The tooth actually, a quarter of the tooth broke off of the rest of the tooth. This is the root of the tooth. Look at this. Diseased, fungal. I tested her area. It was fungus. It was bacteria and parasites living in this thing, in this tooth. But it looked perfect. She had this for over 20 years. When she had this pulled, once she saw that, it was like, get that out of my mouth, she said to the dentist. Get it out. He showed her before he pulled it. She feels better. We had to do some other work in parasite cleansing. No more problem here. People say, but I don't want to lose a tooth. It's my tooth. You want to live with your disease? You want to live with a cancer? You want to live with your thyroid disease or your Crohn's or your celiac? Or do you want to fix it and forget about it? And a tooth, losing a tooth is not going to kill you. Maybe you could put in an implant. Maybe there could be a bridge. Maybe you just don't care because it's a tooth in the back and you can still chew anyway. But we got to get to the cause of your condition. We got to get to the cause of your condition. Here's another patient. Constipation, bloating, diarrhea, fatigue, thyroid problems, depression, anxiety, insomnia. One of his teeth had to be removed. This picture is only one of two pictures I had. I can't find the other one. The tooth shattered into 4 pieces. Dark area here. This was all infected. He had this for years in his mouth. His dentist never caught it. I found it on the exam. When I found this, he went to the dentist. Dentist said, let me take an x-ray. Takes off. Excuse me. They found actually infection in the bone. His dentist never caught that he went to a few years ago and spent $10,000 in his mouth and still didn't know it. I found it. Dentist here took it out. Infection is gone from the mouth now, so the infection has stopped dripping into the body and the intestines and the heart and the thyroid and so on. Amalgam fillings. Go to a video online on YouTube. Write this down. Smoking teeth equals poison gas. Silver, you call them silver fillings. It's mercury. It's poison. Smoking teeth equals poison gas. Also look up online. Write this down. Pause this if you need to, because I'm going to talk fast to be able to get on with more of this information. How mercury causes brain neuron damage. University of Calgary. They took nerve tissue, put it on a petri dish. You see the nerve tissue growing in the laboratory? They took a little pinhead of mercury, silver filling. They put it on the petri dish, and all the nerve tissue just quickly dies. Go watch that. It's like, I don't know, a 6-7 minute video, 4-minute video, something like that. You watch it, you're going to be amazed. Watch Smoking Teeth Equals Poison Gas. Watch How Mercury Causes Neuron Damage, University of Calgary. Here's another picture. Autoimmune gene, celiac gene. What can cause that to express itself? What's the epigenetic story? Maybe the infection in the mouth, maybe the mercury, slow release of mercury to the thyroid, to other tissues. It can cause the autoimmune thyroid disease. It can cause an autoimmune intestinal disease. Gum infections. This came out of January of 2012. It's called Mucosal Immunology, this research paper. And they found that gum and dental inflammation, periodontitis, caused rheumatoid arthritis. Arthritis in the fingers, arthritis in the joints, caused by infection in the gums. It wasn't bleeding gums either. These people had no gum symptoms. Infection in the gums. Do you think if it can cause joint destruction in the fingers, that it can cause an inflammation pattern in your intestines? Yes, it can. You better believe it. Be open for this, because you can get well, naturally. They showed here that invasive bacteria, immune modulation, autoimmune disease. Infections, I find in my practice, bacteria, parasitic, fungal, mold, Lyme, viral. I find mycoplasma. I've got videos on that. Look up online. Put in my name in the YouTube search part. Mycoplasma. I've got 5 of them out there about mycoplasma. Mycobacterium, staph, strep, salmonella, H. pylori, the list goes on. There's so many infections. I invested over $2,000 with a company in England because I wasn't satisfied with the stool tests. I wasn't satisfied with the blood tests. I invested in these testing kits. There's these vials of all different kinds of infections and bacteria and parasites and viruses and mold and fungus and Lyme and dental infections. I've got kits that are dental materials from labs that are composite fillings and metals. I've got all those pieces that I can use here. I've got 80-something bacteria, 60-something parasites, and so many viruses and vaccines that have toxins in them. It's just incredible. Industrial hazardous chemicals, food additives, pesticides. I've got these here. Hundreds of vials. And I can take that vial that has the infection in it, and it's named staph, or it's named strep, or it's named whatever, and they're all different, they're all individuals. I can go to the body and I can say, what's in those intestines? That's not coming up on the lab. We're able to actually use that Chinese medicine, kinesiology, muscle testing work and find what's in your intestines. We could find if you have an adrenal to intestine reflex, maybe a tooth to the gums to the intestines. There's a way to figure it out. There's a biophysics understanding and Chinese medicine understanding I had to adopt, because my job is to get you results. It is not to say, do that lab, come back in a couple of weeks. I used to do that. I couldn't get everybody well. I started saying either I'm lying to people, the books I'm learning from are lying to me, or I'm just not cut out for this. How am I going to stay in practice? How am I going to be able to do a job for somebody if I just keep doing what all the other doctors are doing? I had to step out of the box. I could do Western philosophy with you. We could order laboratories, but we got to do the Eastern philosophy. We got to look at some Indian medicine and Chinese medicine. And there are areas from around the world, Egyptian medicine. There are things that can be blended together. We want to get you results quickly. You've got to be able to say, I have 20 different gang members that are picking on my intestines. It's a tooth, it's the gums, it's my adrenal, it's something here, it's something. It's this infection and that one, it's that heavy metal. We got to clean it up. We can't just keep letting all these gang members keep picking on you. You can't knock them all out with one punch, with one pill. You got to be able to have good skills and keep on navigating around so you don't get hit. Maybe you get hit once, but you got to be able to knock them all out. You understand? You got 20 gang members picking on you. You only knock out one. You still got 19 that are going to keep going after you, that are going to hurt you. We find parasitic roundworms, like what you saw in that picture before, in that tissue paper from that patient. Hookworms, pinworms, tapeworms. The adrenals, we already talked about this before. The adrenals need B6, they need B2, they need PABA, pantothenic acid. They need salt, not white garbage, table salt. They need magnesium. They need nutrients. They need 5 hours of continuous sleep. They need no infection. They need no interference from stresses on the body, traumas. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. They need water. They need to function. And the intestines will slow down because the brain says fluid balance. I'm going to touch that again. If the adrenals are sick, they can't balance the fluid. If you're dehydrating yourself because you don't drink enough water, you weigh 100 pounds, you need 50 ounces of water. You weigh 200 pounds, you need 100 ounces of water a day. If you're dehydrated, guess what happens to the intestines? They slow down. It could be the adrenals. It could be your fault or the doctor's fault for not figuring out that you really do have an adrenal problem. Well, you can run an adrenal stress test. Go look at the cortisol reading. But that's not going to tell you why that cortisol is out of normal. Why is the cortisol out of normal range? It's not going to tell you that. We got to find out why. Why is my lab appearing abnormal? Not, okay, it's abnormal, so I just take this supplement or this vitamin or this medication. Why did it get that way? We already talked about this. We talked about this. Okay, interference fields. In biophysics, are you a biophysicist? Probably not. I'm not either. I don't claim to be, but I've taken some of their information. I've been able to bring this into my practice to get the best results for people. Imagine this. Imagine you have a trauma. You bumped your chin as a kid. You had to get stitches. I did. And that trauma sets off a chain reaction of an energy interference in the body that can make your heart weak or make your intestines weak. Get it? Please listen up. Imagine now you and your family are in a pool. You're at one end of the pool, right now where you're sitting. I'm here at the other end of the pool. And the water is flat. There's no movement. It looks like glass. You look down, you can see your reflection. Right? There it is. Hello. You see the bird even fly over in the sky. You see that bird going on the water. It's a perfect mirror. No movement. I reach over here. I'm going to hit you and your whole family. I'm going to pick up this rock and I'm going to hit all of you with one rock. How could I do that? How is that even possible? With one rock I can hit everybody. Even there's 20 of you lined up at that end of the pool. I can hit all 20 of you with one rock. When I throw that rock up in the air and it lands on the 50-yard line between you, all of you, and me, boom, it's going to drop in the water. It's going to make a splash. The rock is going to fall to the bottom of the pool. What's going to happen to the water at that point? What's going to happen to the water? It's going to make a ripple effect. A little wave-like motion is going to happen. It's going to go towards you and everybody else that's next to you. It's going to go out to the sides of the pool. It's even going to come back and hit me. But I didn't hit you with a rock, but I had an effect with energy against you and everybody else, including myself. From that one trauma to the pool's energy field is what it's called in biophysics. A trauma here, a trauma here, a trauma here from a tooth removed or an injection, a vaccine, a C-section, going in through the belly button for an exploratory surgery. Maybe you bumped your head when you were a kid and you fell down. Ear piercing. These traumas to the energy in the body, the biophysicist, Dr. Popp, Fritz Albert Popp, proved that these can slowly cause this ripple effect to the energy of the tissues and the organs and the glands and the systems of the body and make them weak. It sedates them. It's like taking the energy and turning it down over time. So no nutrient you take is going to bring life back to that function unless we erase that interference. And we use these Egyptian mud therapies for that. And the muds are amazing. I've seen somebody who had to use a wheelbarrow, literally, I mean buckets of supplements. And once we started doing the mud therapy and erasing the interference from that organ, that invisible net that wouldn't let the nutrients get there, they were able to go from this many to this many supplements quickly and had reduction of symptoms in the body. Something else that we do is castor oil packing. If we have infections in the body, if we have infection in an organ like in the intestines, there's parasites, these bugs can lay 20,000 to 200,000 eggs a day. They punch a hole in the intestines. They go up to the periphery, to the peritoneal cavity. They're going to lay eggs, cyst-like eggs. You go and take an antibiotic, that won't kill it all. Look at my video biofilms. I said that already. We take a medicine, we take a natural nutrient that's going to kill the infection that's in there, the parasite. You might have bacteria too, you might have fungus too. Okay, but let's just say it's parasite. You kill the parasite. What about its eggs? What about the eggs it laid? And those hatch in 11, 12, 13 months from now. What about those? You're going to keep the infection. So we do these castor oil hot packs that can actually premature birth of those eggs so that we can kill them all within a 30, 60, or 90-day period. So you can get rid of the infections from the tissues. It's amazing, this work. Emotional retraining. I find people who just really don't believe that they can be healthy. They've been around to hospitals and doctors and they spent money and their insurance and so on. We have to be able to see, are their emotions part of their sickness? I had a man come in, stomach problems. They did the surgery on the top of his stomach. They fundoplication, I think it's called, and he still had the pain in the stomach. When I met him, we changed his diet. We did things with nutrients and so on. I finally discovered, I'm a lot better now. This is going back over a couple of years. Found that he had an emotional problem with an X. Once we cleared up that emotional problem with the X, the stomach pain stopped. He had in his subconscious, he had in his body, in his energy, this anger, this pain that his ex left him. Once he gave it up, once he finally forgave her with an exercise that we did, all the stomach pain went away. And they even did surgery. They went down with cameras. They did all these things. It's incredible. Thousands of dollars of surgery, and it was an emotion that brought on his pain. And getting rid of the emotion got rid of it. We got to be able to forgive. We got to love ourselves. We got to be happy. Now I can be happy. Now I can be healthy. Now I can be Crohn's disease free. Now I can be celiac disease free. And you can just say that all you want, but there's a certain strategy that we have that will make it right for your body, or point is, make it right for the body. There's certain science there, biophysics, understanding of energy of the body that we've got to be able to figure out for you. Electromagnetic fields, look up this name on YouTube, Dr. George Carlo. What was proved is that microphones, and now we can get into radio waves and airport scanners and video cameras and lighting, and I'm not telling you to go live in a cave and stop eating food. That's not the point. We're able to figure out how to modify your environment so that you can still live in this wonderful new, high-tech society that we live in and have your car and everything. But you've got to know how to protect yourself from the electricity in the environment. And if you don't believe me, Dr. George Carlo proved that cell phones can cause DNA damage. Look it up online. We can go on for hours about this. Another proof, research about how the electrical outlets around you can actually block your healing in your body, the oxidative stress and the inflammation. They took hamsters. This came out of Journal of Pineal Research, Volume 29, Issue 4, November 2000. And what they did with these hamsters, they put them in a cage. Basically, here's how it is. They put them in a cage in a dark room at night. They measure their melatonin. They put them in a cage in a dark room at night next to these magnets and the electrical frequencies coming out of like an electrical outlet that's next to your headboard. They measure the melatonin. Guess what they found? While next to these magnets and these electrical frequencies, the melatonin greatly decreased or was non-existent. Melatonin, antioxidant, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. When the hamsters were in the cage in the dark room without the electricity around them, full melatonin expression. We can get deeper into what we have to do for you, but just know there's research. Every point I'm making to get you the results, the research is there. Okay? We already covered sleep issues, gallbladder, so on. Excitotoxins, you want to stay away from things that say natural flavors. They're not natural. That's just another name for MSG, monosodium glutamate. Food coloring, aspartame, sweet and low, garbage. Flame retardant in soda. You got to know what's going into your mouth. And we'll be able to cover those with you, okay? Environmental hazards. You should know that dioxins, they could be found in fats, in animals, in shellfish, styrene from styrofoam. These are cancer promoters. They may not induce the cancer, but they promote the cancer. And they can be stored in your fat for 7 to 10 or 11 years. You got to know what's going into your body. Look up online the dirty dozen chemicals in our food and water. Make sure you have no excipients. I covered this before. You want to make sure that there's no cheapening fillers and toxins that are in your pills, in your tablets, in your you take out that vitamin that's a multivitamin. It looks like a brick. You hit it on the counter, it doesn't break. Those are bad. They're highly heated. They can actually destroy the ingredients in there. And they're putting other fillers to make it come into this compressed one solid tablet. A medical approach we talked about before. They're going to look for antibodies. They're going to look for biopsy and so on, and stool testing and blood testing, and they're going to give you immunosuppressive pills. They're going to give you antibiotics maybe. They're going to give you NSAIDs or corticosteroids. We already talked about the damage those can do. We already talked about the side effects that they have. But I know that you're dealing with your symptoms, and I'm not telling you to stop taking it until we can unravel what's going on and recover your health naturally. Now, a way that I would do it, and I could run labs like a leaky gut test, the heavy metal test, expanded hormone panels, food sensitivity panels. There are stool studies, adrenal stress index. Let me tell you something about food panels. When they go to the laboratory, they go and they take food off the shelf. How do they know if that food has no pesticides on it? And they're testing you against that. How do you know what's going on in the lab? Do you have an IgG, A, and M immunoglobulin tested in your food lab? If one immunoglobulin is upset but the other one's not, and you only tested the one that didn't get upset, so maybe you do have a problem with that egg, or maybe it's not a problem with the egg, maybe it's a problem with the food, that egg was irradiated, their sample that's in the lab, or maybe there was an infection. I mean, there's a number of things we got to understand about these labs. I have a finer quick, elegant way of examining you and your food to be able to figure out, is that causing you a problem? Can you eat it or not? If it's quality food and it doesn't cause your immune system a problem, one of the ways I test is a blood test in the office. If it's not causing the immune system a problem, is it causing the intestines a problem? If it's causing the intestines to get weak on that kinesiology test, do we need fiber? What do we need? Does it need potassium? What does it need to make the intestines okay with eating that egg? Maybe you don't really have a problem with it, but you notice you get bloated every time you eat an egg or whatever the case is. Maybe you just need something else in the system to fix the problem so you can eat it. Gluten-free diets, that was all I used to give to people, and some antioxidants. But what we've got to really get is, it's not always the gluten. Maybe your gluten, actually, maybe the wheat is okay for you. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's the mercury fumigated wheat that's bad. Or maybe when you clear up the infections in the intestines, maybe you can eat the wheat again. Maybe. Maybe. Well, we'll know as we go along. So what do we like to do? We can order blood tests like a TSH, a T4, a T3, a T3 uptake, antibodies on the thyroid maybe, creatinine, homocysteine, C-reactive protein, red blood cells, white blood cells, iron, cholesterol, and even other labs like a leaky gut test. We can order, and I'll show you that one in a minute, the organic acid test, fatty acid metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, B complex markers, energy production markers, methylation cofactors, detoxification markers. I can order that. I'm going to tell you my skills. I've gotten so good at learning how to do different work, at reading the body in a certain way. We can order the test, and I'll be happy. It's going to cost you more. You got to pay the lab for that. Insurance companies don't pay for some of these out-of-the-box tests to find out your problem. And that's sad, but it's the truth. With these labs, I was able to find out over time of working with patients. I ordered the lab and I saw that my protocol I was already creating for them was matching what the lab was. So I stopped ordering labs, but if you want it, we can do it. Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy together give the results as quickly as possible. Heavy metal testing, I always run this. Doctor's data, there's a hair analysis, a urine analysis, and I use the kinesiology testing because I have heavy metals in vials in my office. Hormone testing, we could run expanded male and female hormone panels. I already talked about this patient care example, so go back and look at that again so you get an idea of what we've had to do when we find out what's wrong with a person. Review your laboratories. You should know something like a vitamin D test, for example. The lab range 30 to 100 or 32 to 100. When was the last math class you took where you took a math test and 100 was an A+, and a 30 was still within the normal range of passing? A 30 was an F. It was like, what'd you get, one question right on that test? At least a 70 or above. Vitamin D levels, from what I've learned in the cancer research I do, 80 or above. So just understand, when you look at a lab range, it may be down at a 31 here when the 30 is the low end of normal, and that still doesn't mean it's okay for your body's function. It's just the lab's broad range. We've got to make a tighter A+ range for you if you want to be healthy. One place where I got a lot of this information, I talked about my mentor, Dr. Robert Marshall, a PhD in biochemistry, and he runs the company called Premier Research Labs. He wrote a great paper, you could find it online, The Overlooked Role of Chronic Infection in Neurodegeneration and Its Reversal Using Nutraceutical Agents. Excellent paper. Food sensitivities from Cyrex Labs can be run, looking at proteins and milk proteins and sesame and hemp and rye and other gluten-free grains might still be causing you a problem. I can test them here. You can pay for the lab, or we can test it real quick in my office. And it's accurate. Leaky gut test. We talked about the leaky gut earlier. Well, there's a way that the gut membrane can break down. I brought up earlier, there's different proteins like occludin, some words you probably never heard before, but we can run these zonulin and occludin and actomyosin tests and find out if this tight junction complex that stitches together the intestines, if it's unraveled, and now we have pathogens, bugs, and so on that can get through the intestinal tissue, and then we have your tumor necrosis factor alpha attacking your intestines, and then you have to take your immunosuppressive drugs, or you just figure out, why did this junction break? What's going on with these chemistries? Why did that happen? And that's what I'm getting to. And then we talked about the brain, parts of the brain and the brain stem and so on that we look at for you here. So to sum it up, we got to fix your digestion, rid the infections, fix your emotions if you got problems there. We've got to eat anti-inflammatory diet, prepare certain foods, prepare There's a way to take care of those nuts, seeds, and beans before you eat them. There's a way to soak them properly so that you can get rid of those enzyme inhibitors and the phytic acid and the problems that can actually destroy your gut. Infuse good nutrients and follow a customized program. Dental work might have to be part of it. It just might have to be part of it. Using those mud therapies probably just may be part of it. Okay, we're at the end of this presentation here. And I'm very happy that you invited me into your home and allowed me to share my world of how I understand how to fix you, how to help you fix your problem, your Crohn's, your celiac problem. I never said the word cure, and I never said the word treating your condition. Let me be clear. Okay? For you, in order to come into my office, first of all, I'm here in South Florida. We're 15 minutes west of Fort Lauderdale Airport. We're about 40 minutes north of Miami International Airport. We're about 30 minutes south of West Palm Beach Airport. We're about 3.5, 4 hours south of Orlando Airport. So we're down at the bottom of Florida. People do come here from not only across throughout the state of Florida, across the United States, people from Canada, from Venezuela, from Italy, from United Kingdom, from Norway, from Netherlands. That's how far we've gotten around the world with this information. World Wide Web is a beautiful thing, and I can help people with my great detailed customized treatment programs. People from outside of the state of Florida, even from, if they're from other countries, they come, there's hotels here. I'd like for you to get a room that's an extended stay kind of room that has a kitchen in it, because we're going to have to start changing your diet. You're going to have to get some foods while you stay. I could figure out your problem within a week. I could figure out everything of what's causing your condition within a week. It's going to take me several hours to work with you, but we could figure it out and put all the cards on the table. So now we could say, here's all the causes of your condition, here's what we have to do for your condition, and now we can blueprint out. We can give you a map so you know what you're doing and what you have to, what all the gang members you got to knock out so you can survive and win and beat this problem on your own naturally. I only let people into my practice. I only accept those people who are serious about fixing their condition. If you're still going you still have some other tests that you're running with different doctors, don't call me yet. You still got some other doctors that are trying some different medication with you, don't call here yet. We're too busy in this practice to be able to answer more questions. I've answered it all here in this video. I'm only ready for people on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the most severe. You've got to be an 8, 9, or 10. If you are still at the point where you're trying to figure it out with other doctors and they're running tests and giving you medications, go through that first, please, because you got to be able to be willing to get out of that box and be able to start doing some different things that are going to help you get well. Okay, so only call here if you're an 8 to 10 on a scale of 10, where 10 is the most severe. And I also want you to read, I talked about, watch some documentaries on TV. Food Matters or Food Inc. You should watch those. And also, you have to have the time, the energy, the money to take care of yourself. You are the treasure. Not your car, not your house, not your spouse, car, house, spouse, not your boat or your mink coat or your jewelry or your cruise that you might take. You are the treasure. You're the only person who can take care of the ones and be there for the ones around you that you love and who love you. You're the only one who lives in your skin and in those organs all day, every day, 24/7, 365. You are the one who's the treasure. The insurance companies, Medicare in the United States, Medicare doesn't pay for this work. They don't pay for this research. They don't pay for the care or the supplements. Medicaid doesn't pay. Medicare secondary insurances won't pay. HMO policies don't pay. PPO policies, most often, their deductibles are getting higher with Obamacare coming around the corner, this affordable health care plan. They are not going to cover the kind of work that I'm looking to do with you. The kind of work that's going to get you better, they're not going to cover it. So be prepared. You're going to pay for a consultation. You're going to have to invest in yourself. You pay for your car, you pay for your car insurance, but your car insurance doesn't fix they don't put new tires on. They don't give you balancing and alignment. They don't give you tune-ups. They don't wash and wax your car and put new windshield wiper blades on. They don't put window tinting on. They don't wax the car for you. You get it? They don't put air freshener in there for you. They don't pay for the maintenance of the car. You have policies with the insurance companies. They only do what's in the contract with them. This is going to be your responsibility. This is going to be your responsibility. Okay? You might not be happy with that, but that's I can't get the insurance company to pay. Take it up with your congressman or your insurance agent or something, but they're not going to pay for this kind of work. So you are the treasure, and you've got to say, what has this digestive bowel problem cost you in time, in money, in friends, in missed family events? Where do you picture yourself in the next 1 to 5 years if you don't fix this condition? Where are you going to be in 1 to 5 years if you don't fix this? Still living with the same problem? Maybe it gets worse. Maybe it's the same. Still suffering, still with medication, still going from doctor to, it's just chaos. You want to live your life, get back to function. Get back to normal living function. And what is it worth to you to invest in yourself, to rejuvenate your tissues, to rejuvenate your system, to help yourself heal and live and function normal again? What is it worth to you? You can call our office to schedule a consultation with me. My assistant, Anna, you saw her before, you got to meet her before in the video. Our office number here is 954-370-3100. We have a toll-free number, 1-855-270-HOPE, and you can call. You can call at any time. You can even email us. I'll put this on the screen as well here, or somewhere listed on this video. You can reach my assistant at anna.askdrherman@gmail.com. That's ANA.ASKDRHERMAN@gmail.com. Just send a message over about how you can get an appointment set. If you want to ask a couple of questions, that's fine. Let me tell you something else about the way that I work with people. I think it's really important for me to do some research on you before you come into my practice. Hopefully you agree with that. I think that when you come in for an hour consultation, it should be, I should already know what's going on with you besides a diagnosis of celiac or Crohn's. So we have forms that you can fill out. There's about 12, 13 forms that might take you 45, 60 minutes to tell me your life story. There's questions that you may not see that really pertain to your problem. I ask you to fill those out. Also, if you have a laboratory, any lab results you can get your hands on, I want to see those before I get to meet with you. Those are going to help me understand who's walking into my room so I can really kind of weed through some thoughts in my head and be able to get down to a good clinical examination and be able to tell you what is going on and really what we've got to deal with, and so how we can move forward and costs and all that, okay? Call my office, 954-370-3100, 1-855-270-HOPE. Thank you for letting me come into your home, and I look forward to helping you.